Hey guys, tonight we're going to soar straight into the clouds, just long enough to show you how fast it sucks to fall. You're about to hatch into the life of an eagle, a creature that most people imagine as proud, majestic, even invincible. But from your very first breath, that image cracks wide open. There's wind screaming through the cliffs, a biting cold that claws at your downy feathers before you've even opened your eyes. You're high up, on some jagged ledge your parents thought would be the perfect nursery translation. No trees, no walls, just a couple of sticks mashed into a death trap with a view. And let's talk about that nest. You'd expect some regal, cozy cradle for a future apex predator, right? Nope, this is more like a collapsing bundle of twigs, lined with rotting animal fur, feathers from the dead, and bones. The wind shifts just once, and you're staring at a 100-foot vertical drop. No guardrails, no do-overs. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, what's your location and local time as you're listening to this. I love seeing how far this little nest of ours spreads. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't have a name yet. Nobody comes in to swaddle you, or give you a cute hat. You just crack open from your shell into the world with crusted eyes and half a voice, squirming in the dark. One theory suggests that the vibrations of wind and distant prey cries may even shape the tempo of your first heartbeat. But right now, all you know is that you're cold. Your mother, the feathery fortress who nested you, hovers nearby with that massive hooked beak and sharp eyes that could slice through mist. She's your entire universe now, and she's barely keeping it together. Why? Because building a nest on the edge of the world isn't just for the view, it's to avoid ground predators. That comes at the cost of exposure. Scientists still debate how many eagle chicks actually die from hypothermia before they even get to open their wings. The guess? Too many for comfort. Oh, and you're not alone. There's another squirming ball beside you, your sibling. If you think that's going to be sweet, like some kind of eagle twin bonding moment, you're very wrong. This early in life, there's no such thing as sharing. You're both born hungry, desperate, and fighting for the same food. Mom doesn't bring back a buffet. She brings scraps, maybe a shredded squirrel leg, maybe half a fish. Sometimes nothing, and the hungrier you are, the more violent you get. Your sibling is 2 days older. In eagle time, that's like them having a full gym membership, while you still can't lift your head. They peck first, they eat first, and when you finally wobble upright, wings shaking, ready to squeak for a bite, bam, your sibling smacks you down, with their face. Repeatedly. This isn't rivalry. This is war. Biologists have a name for it: siblicide. In bald eagles and other large raptors, the first hatched chick often kills the second. It's so common, some scientists argue it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's nature's way of saying, just in case the first one dies, here's a backup. But once the first one lives, feel free to yeet the spare. You spend your first few days barely breathing, crouching in the corner of a nest that doesn't care if you roll off. Every movement is a threat. That warm patch of sunlight, already claimed. The fish liver your mom just dropped. You lunge for it, and get slapped with a talon. And mom? She doesn't intervene. She watches, because in her cold ancient biology, the strongest chick must win. If she raises 2, great. But if it's just 1, it better be the beast that survived all odds. On day 6, you get your first reward, your own bite of meat. Not much. A torn mouse spleen maybe, but it's yours. You even get a second bite. A small victory, until your sibling vomits half a fish on your back. Congratulations, you're now a soggy, stinking target. But the world's still turning. Outside, storm clouds gather. Thunder rolls across the cliffs, and while you're too young to know what lightning is, your bones somehow understand fear. One gust, and the nest creaks. A stick snaps, your tiny claw slips near the edge. And that's when it hits you. There's no safety net here. No one's catching you if you fall. Being born on top doesn't mean you get to stay there. And that terrifying thought, it's only just beginning. You're still here. Barely. The wind hasn't claimed you yet, and your murderous sibling hasn't succeeded in knocking you off the edge. But survival at this stage is less about glory and more about simply staying upright and alive. By week 2, the sun feels warmer, but that doesn't make the nest safer. Your feathers start growing in clumps, awkward and oily, a half-formed promise of flight. You flap them like a broken umbrella. They don't work yet, but your siblings do. They hop around, stretching, practicing murder dives. Let's be clear, this is not playful sparring. This is your sibling looking at you like you're a backup snack. Studies have found that in species like golden eagles, up to 80% of second-hatched chicks don't make it to adulthood, often thanks to aggressive sibling displacement. That's a scientific way of saying one chick beats the snot out of the other until only one gets breakfast. And while your parents might swoop in occasionally with a vole or a fish, they're not playing favorites. The stronger chick gets the first bite. The second chick gets leftovers, if any. That's you. And some days the only meal you get is a beak to the ribs. One fringe observation from a raptor rehabilitation center in Idaho even suggests that younger eagle chicks exhibit food deprivation crying that physically wears out their throat muscles by day 12. Translation: you beg so much your voice gives out, and nobody helps. Mom and dad? Oh, they're busy. They have to fly miles to find something remotely edible. The fish stocks in nearby lakes are unpredictable, and human activity near rivers often drives prey away. Scientists are still debating whether urban noise pollution disrupts hunting patterns, but whatever the cause, fewer fish mean hungrier chicks. So you wait, starving, huddled, hoping today is not the day your sibling shoves you off the nest. And it gets worse. Let's talk about your living conditions. Rain, there's no roof. Your nest floods, your feathers get soaked, and you lie there in a puddle of your own future pneumonia. Wind, it howls across your bald patch, turning every nap into a fight against hypothermia. And your sibling, of course, finds this hilarious. They're dry, smug, fluffier. When they stretch, they not accidentally shove you closer to the edge. One misstep, that's all it takes, and missteps are easy when you're too weak to balance. Eagles have notoriously large feet and clumsy coordination for their size at this stage. Your toes wrap around twigs like confused spaghetti noodles. Try to adjust your body, and a gust might catch your back. Suddenly, your talon slips. The drop looms below you like a permanent exile. Sometimes, during brief moments of quiet, you hear the world beyond the cliff. Crickets, wind rustling grass far below, a human car engine somewhere distant. Life continues out there, while you're stuck in this nest of bones and betrayal. A surprising observation in areas near hiking trails: eagle nests sometimes endure more stress from drone flyovers than from actual predators. The buzzing confuses the parents, who may hesitate to return quickly with food. So thanks, Steve from YouTube. Your 4K drone footage just made this nightmare a little worse. And then, one day, something changes. You wake up, stretch, and this time your wings don't flop. They lift. There's muscle. Your sibling notices too. They stare at you a little longer than usual. Their pecks are less smug now. You're catching up. But that doesn't mean the danger has passed. In fact, it's only evolving, because soon your time to test those wings will come. And as bad as the nest is, what waits beneath it is even worse. It's been weeks now, and the nest feels smaller, not because it's shrinking, but because you're growing. Finally, your wings are broadening. Your legs are stronger. You're still bruised, still hungry, still weathered by every storm, but you've survived the worst of sibling politics. Mostly because your sibling has graduated from the nest, and you've now inherited a solo performance slot in this terrible theater. But guess what? Your turn's coming. And with that turn comes the next terrifying milestone: your first flight. Here's what you don't know. Flight is not automatic. You've watched your sibling launch into the wind like a feathered superhero, circling overhead while you sat there like a grounded paperweight. But when it's your turn, it won't feel majestic. It'll feel like a dare. Biologists call it fledging. You call it plummeting. There's no instruction manual, no warm-up coach, no pep talk. You just stand there, heart racing, looking at an abyss that has killed generations before you, and the wind is never calm on Fledge Day. It howls, it dares you to jump. You flap your wings in desperate rhythm, trying to build lift, but you're not sure if you're flying or flailing. And then you leap. Instant regret. You catch the air, but your body tilts awkwardly. You're not flying, you're falling with opinions. Your right wing drags, your feet dangle, and your beak is pointing exactly where gravity wants you to go. Remember, your wings are oversized kites on spaghetti arms. You don't know how to steer. The world becomes a blur of rock, pine trees, windburn, and sheer panic. And if you're lucky, you crash into a bush. If you're unlucky, you meet a rock at 40 miles per hour, or a fence, or let's say a startled bear. One researcher in Montana once noted that nearly 30% of young eagles fail their first flight, either injured, grounded, or snatched by predators, before they even flap a second time. It's not a cute rite of passage, it's a trial by sky. If you survive, you stumble forward on clawed feet, dazed and confused. You're on the ground now, a place your species was never meant to hang out. And the ground, oh, it is not your friend. You're slow here, vulnerable. You can't launch straight up. You need space and slope, and you've got neither. Coyotes love this stage of your development. So do foxes and humans with cameras. If you're near civilization, some kid might spot you and try to rescue you by wrapping you in a towel and calling animal control. They mean well. But now you're in a cardboard box sipping water from a plastic lid, wondering what happened to the clouds. Eventually, if you're not eaten or rescued, you flap and crawl your way to a low branch. This is where training begins. You practice short hops, you jump, you fall, you try again. It's humbling and humiliating. Even your calls sound unsure. Instead of a noble screech, you let out a weird honking rasp, like a goose with asthma. That's because your voice box, your syrinx, is still catching up. One fringe fact: some juvenile eagles imitate adult screeches before they physically can, resulting in hilarious hybrid sounds researchers call chortle cries. You sound like you're trying to threaten a chipmunk while choking on cornflakes, but every day it gets a little better. You start flapping higher, you begin riding thermals, those invisible rivers of warm air, and for the first time, you feel it. Lift, real lift. You ascend, slowly, uncertainly, but you're up. The forest shrinks below you. You circle once. It's not perfect, but it's yours. Of course, it only lasts until you try to land, which, by the way, you are terrible at. Landing as an eagle is like trying to park a speeding bicycle with no brakes onto a swaying hammock. You overshoot your target, smack into a branch, tumble, and end up dangling upside down while squirrels mock you. Still, you made it. But don't get cocky. Flying isn't freedom. It's just a license to enter a bigger, more dangerous world. One where your next challenge is not avoiding your sibling or staying on the nest. Now your challenge is staying alive in the sky. Because up here, everyone's hunting, including you. Now that your wings work, and the nest is a memory, you've entered a new phase, one that sounds epic, even cinematic. The open sky. But don't get too poetic about it. Because the sky, it's not your playground. It's your battlefield. Let's start with the basics. You're now expected to hunt your own food. No more free deliveries from mom. No more chewed up squirrel guts dropped into your beak while you chirp like a spoiled prince. From here on out, if you don't kill, you don't eat. And it turns out, killing is hard. You might have perfect vision. Seriously, your eyesight is about 8 times sharper than a human's. You can spot a rabbit 2 miles away, but spotting and catching are 2 very different skills. Especially when your first dive ends with a splash into a lake and no fish to show for it. Here's a historical note to humble you. In ancient Rome, the eagle was a symbol of power. Legions marched under its image, but they didn't see your clumsy side. The juvenile awkwardness, the flailing claws, the part where you miss your target completely and crash into the ground like a badly programmed drone. And when you do manage to grab something, it might fight back. You thought fish were easy, Try catching a carp that weighs almost as much as you. You grab it, lift it halfway, and suddenly it writhes in your talons like a wet, scaly chainsaw. You start losing altitude. Fast. There's a real chance the fish pulls you into the water, and water is your enemy. You're not a duck. You can't swim. Your wings aren't waterproof. Once you're soaked, you can't fly. You paddle toward shore, like a panicking beach towel, and hope no one's watching or circling. Which brings us to your next terrifying realization. You're not alone up here. That sky you used to dream about. It's crawling with threats. Other birds, bigger birds, meaner birds. Red-tailed hawks will harass you for sport. Owls, silent and ruthless, will ambush you from behind, especially if you wander near their nesting territory. And then there are your own kind. Yes, eagles, older ones. Grizzled veterans who see you not as kin, but as competition. One famous observation out of Alaska documented a bald eagle being dismembered mid-air by another over a fish carcass. Feathers exploded. Talons locked. Blood in the wind. Scientists still debate why eagles are so territorial even in prey-rich environments. One theory suggests it's not about food, it's about status. In the eagle world, dominance is everything, and dominance is earned with violence. And you're the intern, the unpaid apprentice, the feathered rookie flapping in a world of sharp talons and sharper attitudes. You try to keep low, you fish at the edges, you learn the currents, you avoid eye contact with older eagles, and hope your squeaky voice doesn't give you away. But one day it happens. You're mid-flight, scanning the trees below, when a streak of brown and white hits you from the left. No warning, just impact. It's not a predator, it's another eagle. A hit and run. A warning. You twist it in the air, flip onto your back like you've been trained to do, and lock talons defensively. You're smaller, weaker. You're tossed aside like trash, and in that brief tumble, the ground gets closer. You recover, barely. Your feathers are bent, your pride shattered, and your talon has a chip in it now. That's your best weapon, by the way, and now it's compromised. Your attacker vanishes into the clouds. You're not dead, but you are reminded. You're not the apex, not yet. You're the training dummy in a sky filled with killers, and every day you don't die is counted as progress. So you regroup, you heal, you learn, and soon you do what every young eagle must do. You fly farther, you search wider, because the next thing you need is your own territory. And guess what? Nobody wants to share. You're flying farther now, beyond the ridgelines you once called home, past the forests, rivers, and hunting grounds already claimed by stronger wings. You're searching for something that doesn't exist anymore. Unclaimed airspace. Eagles don't lease territory, they seize it. And if someone's already living there, you've got two options. Challenge them, or keep flying. And here's the issue. Most of the good spots are taken. That perfect cliff face with a panoramic fish view, occupied. That high pine with a breeze and a branch cradle just begging for a nest, already full of feathers and attitude. Even some sad little swamp corner with more mosquitoes than prey. Yep, claimed. In the wild, territory is everything. It's where you eat, where you sleep, where you someday raise chicks of your own. Without territory, you're not an eagle, you're a tourist. And this species has no time for tourists. You spot an opening, a quiet patch near a riverbank, no visible nests. You spiral down to stake a claim, then you hear it, that shrill shrieking war cry of a resident male who did not invite you. And before you can lift off again, bam, a torpedo of feathers and fury slams into your side. You're locked in a full-on talon fight. Mid-air, spinning, slashing, screaming, you twist and try to roll onto your back. Classic eagle defense. But your opponent is older, stronger, battle-tested. A massive claw rakes across your flank. Blood spatters, not a metaphor. Actual droplets, flicked off by force and wind. You break away, barely. You live. But you're shaken. And that river patch, not yours. Never was. Fun fact, bald eagles can live for decades, and some dominate the same territory for 20-25 years. That's a long time for you to be sleeping on branches like a vagabond. And yet, even if you find a quiet corner nobody's patrolling, you still have to defend it. From everyone. Forever. One fringe study in Minnesota once tracked a subadult eagle that claimed a nesting spot, only to be ousted by a mated pair within 6 hours. It hadn't even dropped a twig yet. So, you adapt, you stay mobile, you learn to bluff, you fly high, puff your feathers, and circle low over fish-rich rivers just to make others think you're the boss here. It works. Sometimes. But there's always the threat of another challenger. And then, when you least expect it, there's something worse. The sky itself turns on you. A storm rolls in, fast. Dark clouds swallow the sun. You flap harder, but your wings hit walls of resistance. Wind curls under you and yanks upward. Rain needles your feathers. And lightning. It's not poetic anymore. It's just terrifying. Scientists still debate whether raptors are statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than other birds, given their tendency to fly higher during thermals. But some corpses have been found, feathers singed, talons curled mid-grip. You dive, hard, find a tree, any tree, but even landing's a gamble now. Branches sway like wild pendulums. One misstep, and you're falling into mud. Or worse, into the waiting mouth of something with fur and sharp teeth. The storm howls around you, and somewhere inside your tired bird brain, a thought sneaks in. Would it have been easier to fall from the nest back then? To never have reached this place? So high, so hungry, so hunted. But you're an eagle. That means you don't quit. You can't. So you grip the branch tighter, you let the storm pass, and at dawn, soaked and aching, you take to the sky again, because the alternative is dying on the ground. By now, your body is leaner. Your wings move with less hesitation. Your dives are sharper, and your kills, while still clumsy, are beginning to land. You've got scars, yes, but also confidence. And so begins the next phase of your miserable glory, becoming a killer. Let's be honest. Eagles are not graceful fishermen in some nature. Documentary narrated by a soothing British voice. They are opportunistic, aggressive, and at times absolute thieves. You see a fish in the river? Great. Dive. Catch. Easy. Until an osprey gets there first. Now, here's the twist. You don't back off. No. You chase the osprey. You scream, you harass, and with a mid-air karate move, you force it to drop the fish. Then you snatch it from the sky like a feathered pickpocket. This behavior is called kleptoparasitism, stealing food from others. Bald eagles do it all the time. And while it sounds sneaky, it's part of survival. It's how you conserve energy. Why risk a wing cramp over a carp when you can mug a seagull instead? But stealing is only part of it. You still need to hunt. So you scan the fields. Rabbits, snakes, ducks. You dive like a missile, talons forward. Your eyesight locks onto your target with laser precision. Scientists estimate you can see ultraviolet traces that help detect urine trails, highlighting prey in ways humans can't even imagine. But let's not romanticize it. Sometimes your target hears you. They dodge. You slam into the ground. Dust clouds, twisted feathers, a bruised ego, or worse. Your prey fights back. A Canada goose, for instance, is no pushover. Try attacking one, and you'll find yourself in a beak and wing brawl that ends with your pride plucked. That goose, still swimming. You, limping back to a tree with a torn wingtip and a bad attitude. And even when you do succeed, your meal isn't guaranteed to stay yours. You land. You feast. Then a pair of crows arrives. They scream. They dive bomb. They yank your tail feathers while you try to swallow. You hiss. Spread your wings in a threat display. It works temporarily. But then more arrive. 5, 6, 10. A murder of crows is not just a clever name. It's a full-scale robbery in broad daylight. Eventually you're outnumbered. Again, you launch away with half a meal, watching your stolen prize become their party snack. Fringe note. Some researchers believe crows and ravens do this partly for entertainment, not just food. That's right, you're comedy to them. And it's not just birds. You swoop down to grab a snake basking on a rock. Success. You carry it skyward, until the snake coils and bites you mid-flight. Scientists are still debating whether eagles have any natural immunity to venom, especially from species like rattlesnakes. But one thing's for sure, even when you win, you might still lose. So every meal you catch becomes a calculation. Is it big enough to risk injury? Is it fresh enough not to make you sick? Because food poisoning isn't just for gas station sandwiches. Eat the wrong carcass, too rotten, too poisoned, too chemically polluted, and your mighty eagle gut becomes your downfall. Humans, by the way, are amazing at making this worse. Some people leave out meat laced with poison to kill coyotes or feral dogs. You eat it, boom, neurological failure. Others shoot lead bullets into deer, then leave the carcass. You eat the gut pile. Lead poisoning slowly destroys your nervous system. One real-world example. In the US, researchers have linked declining eagle populations in some areas directly to lead ingestion from scavenged remains. It doesn't take much, just a fragment. And here you are, a living symbol of freedom, starving, fighting, thieving, and trying not to die from eating lunch. By now, you've clawed your way into survival. You've tasted victory, fleeting, feathery, occasionally slippery victory, but it's never enough. Because the truth about being a top predator is that everyone wants your crown, and the longer you wear it, the heavier it gets. Your talons, they are your pride and your peril. These aren't just oversized toenails, they're curved daggers, pumped with blood vessels and packed with pressure sensors. When you strike, your grip can exert up to 400 pulse. That's enough to pierce bone, enough to kill with a single squeeze. But these tools come at a cost. You snap a talon mid-hunt, and suddenly you're grounded, literally and figuratively. One miscalculated dive, one bad branch landing, and your deadliest asset becomes your downfall. Talons don't grow back fast, and while they heal, you can't grip properly. You miss more kills, you drop food, you lose fights, your weight drops. There's a case from the Pacific Northwest where a bald eagle, documented by wildlife rangers, lost a single talon and starved to death over 4 weeks. Not because it couldn't fly, but because it couldn't hunt. One theory among raptor researchers is that talon maintenance plays as big a role in longevity as food access. That's why you grind them on bark. That's why you obsessively scratch and preen. But even pristine talons don't save you from competition. You're in the middle of a kill, maybe a fish you finally earned with your own beak, and another eagle swoops in, bigger, older, battle-scarred. It lands nearby and stares. You bluff. You fluff your feathers. You shriek. The other eagle does not flinch. Then it lunges. You lock talons mid-air. You twist in a spinning chaos of claws, beaks and feathers. This isn't posturing anymore. This is combat. Eagles engage in what scientists call cartwheel combat. They grab each other mid-air and spiral downward in a free-fall death grip. Sometimes they release, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they hit the ground. A pair of golden eagles in Mongolia once locked talons so tightly that neither let go. They slammed into a mountain slope and died instantly. So yeah, those majestic spirals in documentaries, less ballet, more blood sport. And then there's infection. You scrape your talon on a sharp rock. Seems minor, but the wild is not sterile. One bacteria-laced scratch and your foot swells. A condition called bumblefoot develops, an infection that causes painful boils, stiffness, and sometimes gangrene. Now try landing, hunting, perching, or even sleeping with a foot that feels like it's boiling from the inside. Worse still, the pain throws off your balance. You fly clumsier, you miss branches, you miss kills, and if you can't hunt, you starve. That's the pattern again, always. No margin for error. Your weapons are both your survival and your liability. Even your eyesight, your legendary gift, is at risk. A tiny speck of dust, a scratch from a thorn, and your cornea clouds. Vision becomes blurry. Now you're a hunter who can't see. Scientists still debate how many eagles go blind in the wild, but raptor rehab centers report frequent cases of eye injuries due to sharp prey, fights, or even sandstorms. A one-eyed eagle is not a mythic survivor. It's a grounded bird waiting for the scavengers. So here you are, strong but fragile, deadly, but always one mistake away from being dinner instead of diner. You keep flying, higher, further, always patrolling, always watching, because your only hope is to stay just slightly more functional than the eagle next door. And all the while, the young ones are watching you, waiting for your moment of weakness, because one day, you'll blink too slow, and they'll come for your cliff. You've survived talon fractures, sky fights, and public humiliation by crows. Now comes something arguably worse than all that. Love, or at least, what passes for courtship in eagle culture, which, spoiler alert, is less about poetry and more about physics-defying chaos. You're flying high, scanning the world not for prey this time, but for a mate. And because you're an eagle, this doesn't involve soft music or building a Tinder profile. No, this involves aerial stunts that could kill you. Let's say you spot her, a powerful silhouette cutting through the sky, wings wide, her feathers gleaming with confidence. You call to her, a piercing screech, half desperate, half arrogant. She answers, and now begins the sky dance. This isn't a metaphor, it's an actual high-speed, mid-air ritual, where you and your potential partner lock talons, yes, intentionally, and spiral downward in a cartwheeling freefall. The goal, impress her. The risk, death. You're plummeting through the sky, at highway speeds, feathers tearing through the wind, spinning like a drill. At the last second, you're both supposed to release and fly away, clean, cool, alive. But sometimes, you don't release in time, and the ground, it doesn't care if you were in love. One fringe study tracked eagle courtship fatalities in rugged mountain regions, documenting pairs that miscalculated their release point and slammed into snowy cliffs. Biologists, in that charmingly clinical way, refer to this as mating-induced impact trauma. The rest of us just call it romantic disaster. Still, let's say you survive the courtship plunge, she sticks around, you start to build a nest together, which sounds nice, right? Shared dreams, shared hunting, maybe a couple of fluffball chicks next season. Hold up. Before that, you have to build the actual nest, and it has to be huge. We're talking hundreds of pounds of sticks, branches, bones, fur, even trash if you can find it. Eagles are extreme recyclers. One pair in Florida built a nest that weighed over 2 tons, but building the nest isn't the hard part. It's agreeing on where. You want this cliff. She wants that tree. You want to face the sunrise. She wants a lake view. You argue, screech, tug sticks in different directions. At one point, she throws an entire branch off the ledge. Passive-aggressive, absolutely. And even when you do agree, you're now a co-tenant, and she is not here for your sloppiness. If you slack off, she notices. If you're late bringing back food, she notices. If you're clumsy and step on the eggs, oh, she notices. There's a documented behavior among bald eagles, where one partner will begin sabotaging the nest, when unhappy, literally dismantling it mid-season. No yelling, no drama, just quiet destruction. Scientists are still debating whether this is strategic, hormonal, or just the bird equivalent of filing for divorce. But hey, if you're lucky, the eggs are laid, the nest holds, and your awkward sky romance holds together through storms, predators, and near starvation. Congratulations, you've found love. Now comes parenting, which, if you think your early life was hard, just wait, because now, you're the provider, the protector, the one who has to throw yourself into wind and rain and ice storms, over and over, just to feed a pair of fluffballs that scream endlessly, and never thank you. Oh, and your partner, yeah, she's still watching, always. So you've built the death trap nest, survived the aerial proposal, and now you're a full-time parent. Welcome to the next stage of eagle misery. Endless suffering disguised as responsibility. The eggs are warm, you've taken turns brooding them, sitting still for hours on end while the wind gnaws at your feathers and the sun roasts your back. It's like being locked in an oven during a hurricane. Except instead of baking cookies, you're incubating screaming time bombs. Then, the eggs hatch, and just like that, your trauma loops back to the beginning. Only this time, you're the parent. Two tiny fluff balls emerge, and you remember what this means. One of them may not make it. You watch them squabble, push, peep, and yes, peck. Sibling rivalry kicks in immediately. You think of your own sibling, the bruises, the starvation, the quiet hope that they'd roll off the edge. And now, you see it repeating. But there's no pause, no nostalgia, because now, it's your job to feed them. Constantly, and feeding eagle chicks. It's a logistical nightmare. Every meal is a hunt. Every missed catch means guilt. You fly miles across blistering skies or rain-lashed forests, just to bring back a vole the size of a chicken nugget. You arrive panting, wings sagging, and what do the chicks do? They scream like you haven't worked a day in your life. One lunges at the other. The smaller chick falls back. You hesitate. Do you feed the stronger one first, like your parents did, or try to distribute the food evenly and risk a riot? One fringe study in Canada found that eagle parents under extreme environmental stress tend to favor the dominant chick even more, as if the system self-reinforces the cruelty. Scientists still debate whether this is instinct or learned behavior, but here you are, passing down the pain. And guess what? It's not just feeding. There's defending too. Predators know your nest exists. Ravens, raccoons, snakes, even other eagles. One bold intruder can snatch an unattended chick in seconds. You've seen it, heard the shriek. Too late, so now you stand guard. Claws curled around brittle branches, sleep deprived, hungry, always watching. And your mate? Yeah, about that. Things are tense. You were a dream team during the courtship dive, sure, but now, you're arguing over whose turn it is to hunt. You return with food. She criticizes the size. She returns late. You glare. And sometimes, when you're away, she just leaves. There's a phenomenon in raptor pairs, where one partner abandons the nest mid-season. Scientists call it mate desertion. They think it's triggered by food shortages, territory stress, or reproductive failure. But you just call it betrayal. Still, if both of you stay, and the chicks survive their own little Hunger Games, you'll eventually witness their first flights. It should be beautiful, emotional, triumphant. It's not. It's terrifying, because they might fall, and even if they don't, you have to watch them flail through the sky like you once did. Awkward, loud, and clearly not ready. You track them. You follow their crash landings. You bring them food while they figure out lift, and eventually, they leave. They don't say goodbye. They don't write. They just vanish into the vast sky, feathered silhouettes carried by wind and instinct. You return to the empty nest, broken twigs, old bones, silence, and you sit there, blinking, exhausted, knowing that next season, you'll probably do it all over again. Time moves differently now. Seasons pass. Feathers molt. The chicks are gone. Your mate perches less often beside you. The nest sits empty, creaking in the wind like an abandoned house with memories too heavy to sweep away. You're not young anymore. But don't expect the world to ease up just because your bones creak louder. If anything, things are about to get worse. Welcome to the endless war for territory. Because while you're still recovering from parenting-induced burnout, new challenges have arrived. Fresh, young, reckless birds with no scars and everything to prove. They come screeching across the skyline, testing your boundaries. One lands on the fringe of your territory and just sits there, preening its smug little feathers, like it's not planning to take over your entire life. And that's the rule. If you don't defend it, you lose it. So you launch, again. Your wings are heavier now. Your reaction time's slower. That little pain in your shoulder, it never really healed. But you bluff. You spread wide, let out your old war cry, and hope the youngster hasn't noticed your limp. But they always notice. One younger eagle charges. You collide mid-air, talons clashing, feathers flying. You manage to hold your own this time, drive them off. But you feel it. It took more out of you than it should have. And they'll be back. Scientists have noted that older eagles start losing territory to younger rivals around age 15, 20, even though they can live into their 30s. The downfall isn't a dramatic final battle. It's attrition, slow, exhausting attrition. Even the landscape turns against you. That riverbank you once ruled, now clogged with human trash. Jet skis thunder past your fishing spots. New construction blocks your thermal paths. And then, one day, the unthinkable happens. You return to your nest after a long hunt and find another pair rebuilding it, just casually dragging in sticks like they own the place. You dive, screech, rage, but they're younger, faster. They double team you, driving you off with terrifying efficiency. It's gone. Your cliff, your tree, your sky, gone. You retreat, flying for hours, searching for a quiet place just to rest. But every direction holds noise, threats, strangers. You become what you once chased off a drifter. One fringe observation in older eagles revealed that post-territory loss behavior often mirrors symptoms of depression in mammals: reduced hunting, less grooming, more isolation. Scientists don't know if eagles feel sadness, but watching them circle without direction, it's hard not to project. And as if that weren't enough, the body begins to betray you. You misjudge a landing, slam into a branch. You miscalculate a dive, miss your prey by feet. Your once razor-sharp talons are duller now, your beak chipped, your feathers rough from years of storms and battles. There's no vet, no warm blanket, no one brings you soup. You just keep flying and try not to fall apart mid-glide. But in the back of your mind you know, there's one final battle you can't win, and it's getting closer. There's no announcement, no warning bell. Just one day you realize you're no longer feared. You're flying lower, not because you want to, but because you have to. Your wings don't hold the thermals like they used to. Your flaps are heavier. The updrafts don't lift you as high. You spot a fish, but hesitate. Once, you'd have dove headfirst into the hunt, wind slicing around your beak, talons primed. Now you hover longer, gauge the distance, second guess, and in that pause, the fish vanishes. Hunger creeps back in, that old familiar ache. But this time, it's accompanied by another feeling: hesitation. You're not the predator you were, and the other eagles, they know it. You feel them watching, not with respect, with calculation, like you once watched the elders before they fell. One particularly haunting study from Wyoming observed aging eagles slowly pushed out of communal roosting areas, not by fights, but by being ignored, rejected, outcircled. There's no ceremony, no retirement, just cold stares and empty branches. You still hunt, but the prey is smaller now. You scavenge more. Stealing a dead rabbit from a fox feels like a win, even though the fox bit you and you're limping again. You spend more time perched, staring, listening, watching young eagles scream their victory cries over rivers you used to rule. And then comes the final humiliation. One morning, as you attempt a shaky flight, you misjudge a branch, you miss the angle, your foot slips, you tumble, not far, but it's enough. You hit the ground hard, and the worst part, you can't take off right away. You flap, once, twice, nothing. You rest. You try again. Eventually you climb a low rock and manage a lift, but your left wing stutters mid-air. You make it to a branch and sit there for hours, too embarrassed to move. Somewhere below, a raccoon watches with interest, and you know, truly know, that you're not feared anymore. Now you're tested. The wind is no longer your partner. It's a wall, a reminder. Even flying has become an ordeal. Your joints ache in the cold. The very air you once sliced through now pushes back. You land harder. You miss more often. And that glorious call, your voice once sharp and echoing across valleys, has thinned. Eagles don't go silent, but they do go quieter. Some fringe researchers even suggest that older eagles call less frequently, not due to vocal degeneration, but from a behavioral shift. Knowing their screeches won't be answered, you don't cry out for mates. You don't issue warnings. You just listen. You hear the battles overhead, the shrieks of dominance, the screams of new lovers falling through the sky in cartwheeling chaos. You hear all of it, and you remain still, because now, movement hurts, and silence keeps you safe. For now, you don't have a calendar, but your bones are keeping count. Your body has become your clock, wings that ache before the rain, talons that crack in the cold, eyes that squint against sun you once drank like a god. But the world doesn't care about your seniority. It doesn't care that you once ruled the cliffs, that your scream once echoed for miles. Out here, legacy means nothing. The sky has no memory. You still try though. There's a fish gliding near the riverbank. You see it, you calculate, you dive, but your timing is off. You hit the water too soon. Your talons close on nothing. You pull yourself out, soaked and sputtering, wings heavy with river water. You find a branch low enough to reach and sit there, dripping, humiliated, cold. Then the young ones arrive. 2 of them, feathers still sleek, movements cocky. They don't hunt, they circle you. Curious, amused. One swoops low, screeching, a mock dive, not a threat, a test. You don't respond, you can't. And after a few minutes they leave, not because you scared them, but because you didn't. They don't see a rival, they see a relic, a feathered shadow of what they will become, and what they will eventually lose. You stay there for hours, not because you're resting, but because you're not sure where else to go. You've been forced out of your old territory. You don't have a mate, your body can't fly long distances anymore. Even your calls, when you try them, feel thin. One fringe study on geriatric raptors suggests that some older eagles voluntarily isolate themselves, choosing quiet cliff ledges or dead trees, far from hunting routes, not because they're driven out, but because they know the final chapter has begun. You start to eat whatever you can find, carrion, scraps, even garbage near roads, and that's when the risk changes. Before it was predators, competition, starvation. Now, it's humans. You swoop down toward what looks like a small rodent, only to find it's plastic. You fly off, coughing, your throat raw. You land near a roadside deer carcass, but you don't see the speeding truck until it's too close. Your wing clips the mirror. You tumble. You survive, barely. You drag yourself into the grass, panting, trembling. No broken bones, just bruises, but the message is clear. This world is no longer built for you. The trees are thinning, the rivers are polluted, the cliffs are drilled. Scientists are still debating whether aging eagles change migration patterns due to cognitive decline or environmental learning. But you don't need a study to explain why you're flying less. You're just done, and so you find a perch. High, wind-battered, quiet, not to hunt, not to call, just to watch. The sunset stretches wide, burning gold over the valley. Below, 2 younger eagles chase each other through the thermals. They scream, they dive, they tumble together in dizzy courtship. And you still silent watch, not with envy, with understanding, because that used to be you. And what comes next? Well, that's no longer up to you. It starts with a chill, not the kind the wind brings. No, that's always been there. But something deeper, in your joints, in your chest, in the way you pause before each glide, calculating not just the wind but the cost. And one day, mid-flight, you feel it. The stall. You're gliding over a clearing, watching the shadows shift below you, when your wing just falters. It doesn't respond the way it used to, not fast, not strong, just a moment of lag, like a loose thread in the fabric of the sky. You correct, you steady, but you felt it, and in that heartbeat of hesitation, you understand your body is letting go before you are. Aging is not a cliff, it's a slow unraveling, so you adapt. Again, you fly shorter routes, you rest more, you avoid cliffs and risky winds, and you notice something curious. The other animals, they notice you less. No more scolding from jays, no more harassment from crows. Even the foxes you used to outfly barely glance up anymore. You're becoming invisible, and not in a magical wise old owl kind of way, in a no longer a threat kind of way. One fringe observation from birdwatchers in Chile. described an elderly eagle that lived its final months entirely within a single square kilometer, never fought, never called, never hunted, just scavenged quietly and roosted in the same sunlit tree. You understand that now, because every hunt takes more effort than it returns. Every wind gust is a risk. Even your feathers betray you. Molting used to be annoying but manageable. Now it's debilitating. You lose balance, your warmth drops, your new feathers don't grow in as fast or as firm, and your eyes, the once legendary lenses of the sky, begin to blur at the edges. Scientists still debate how much raptor vision declines with age, but anecdotal evidence suggests dimming acuity, just enough to miss a flash of movement or misjudge a distance. That 1-inch difference between catching a rabbit or face planting into a log, that's everything. You miss more, you bruise easier, you bleed longer, but somehow you keep going, not out of pride, not even survival, out of instinct. You perch at the edge of a crag, watching a world that no longer watches back. The thermals that once lifted you feel distant. The clouds don't part for you anymore. The sky has moved on, and you still flap, still glide, still exist. But with every beat of your tired wings you wonder, how many more sunrises, how many more dives, how many more branches will still hold your weight, because now, with nothing left to defend, you are not an eagle seeking prey, you are an eagle seeking peace. The days stretch longer now, or maybe you're just moving slower. The wind feels thinner, the light more distant, and even the trees, your oldest companions, seem to whisper something final. You no longer chase prey. You wait. You watch. If something small and slow wanders too close, you strike, but only if it's worth it. You can't afford the gamble of a failed dive anymore. So, your meals grow simpler. Carrion, scraps, maybe the occasional lizard sunning too long. Your perch has become your world. A high, lonely limb that still holds your weight, though you test it each morning with a cautious shuffle and a grip that's not what it used to be. And from here, you witness the cycles continue. The storms come, the young eagles dance in the clouds, locked in courtship cartwheels, the same ones you once spun. They scream their dominance. They dive for fish with reckless joy, and you don't feel envy. Not exactly. You feel distance. It's like watching a memory reenacted by strangers. A wind gust hits your side. You lean into it, adjust, ride it for a few seconds, but it drains you. You land again, and your talons tremble slightly on contact. One theory some ornithologists whisper, though rarely publish, is that old eagles know, they sense the end. It isn't fear, it's a kind of surrender, a release of the relentless fight. You stop preening so much, your feathers fray at the tips, and your calls, fewer now, just a raspy croak at dawn, maybe, a sound more out of habit than purpose. Sometimes you don't move all day, you just stare at the horizon, at nothing in particular, and at night, you dream less. Even sleep feels more like floating than resting. You close your eyes to the wind and wonder, briefly, how long you'll feel it. How many more sunrises you'll watch blink open from the east, warming your brittle bones for a few precious minutes before the cold creeps back in. No one's coming to check on you. There are no children returning, no flock, no ceremony, just you, the sky, and the silent gravity of time. And so you rest, perched on the edge of the world, no longer a hunter, no longer a guardian, just a quiet shape against the clouds, waiting, not afraid, just ready. You wake to wind, but not the same wind as before. It's gentler now, more like a whisper than a push. It moves through your ragged feathers like memory, not force. You blink slowly, vision still sharp in places, soft in others. The sky above you is washed in that silver blue glow that only happens when night hasn't fully left and morning hasn't fully arrived. It's quiet. No cries from juveniles, no threats, no fish splashing below, just silence. And that's when you know today will be your last flight. Not because you planned it, not because it feels dramatic, but because you feel light, not in body, but in burden. There's nothing more to defend, nothing left to build, no chicks to protect, no mate to chase. You don't even hesitate. You leap, Your wings open, trembling slightly, but steady enough. You glide, not high, not fast, just a wide, slow spiral down the mountain you once ruled. And as you descend, your story drifts with you. The nest, the sibling fights, the bloodied talons, the wind-battered hunts, the lonely cliff perches, the triumphs, the agony. You don't crash, you don't fall, you land quietly near the base of a gnarled old tree, one you probably passed hundreds of times without noticing. It's sheltered, quiet, and there beneath the roots, half covered in leaves, you rest. Not because you're weak, because you're finished. Scientists rarely witness this part. Most eagle deaths are unseen. But maybe, just maybe, if someone were watching now, if they looked closely enough, they'd see what looks like a tired bird taking one last nap. They wouldn't hear the story in your feathers. They wouldn't know how hard the sky fought you, how many storms you outflew, how many branches you clung to in silence. And in that stillness, you take one final breath, a long exhale. The wind lifts your feathers gently, then passes on. The world continues without you. The sun creeps higher, touching the tips of the trees you once ruled. Insects buzz lazily around the grass. A squirrel chatters somewhere nearby, unaware of the quiet legacy resting just beyond the roots. And as the light warms your still feathers, your story dissolves into the landscape. No songs will be sung, no monument will be raised. But for the sky, you were everything. Its hunter, its shape, its silent guardian. Other eagles will come. They will scream their power into the clouds, dive through thermals, build nests where yours once stood. They'll never know your name, but they will carry your fight. Because in this wild and brutal kingdom, nothing lasts, but everything echoes. So if you're still listening, tucked into bed with the fan humming in the background, I hope you understand what it truly meant to be born an eagle. Not a symbol of freedom, but a creature of endless struggle, a master of survival, a soldier of the wind. And even though your wings are heavy now, even though your eyes drift closed, there's something noble in knowing you flew as long and far as you could, that you never gave up the sky, even when the sky gave up on you. So rest now, let go of the branches, let the thermals fade. You've earned this stillness. Sweet dreams, sky warrior.